Just try harder. Now, you've probably heard that your entire life. You heard it in school when you got stuck on a task, when someone at home said it because you forgot something important, or even at work when you missed a deadline. And at some point, you probably started saying it to yourself. For years, I genuinely believed that if I just tried harder, I wouldn't be behind. I could handle things the way everyone else seemed to, and I'd stop letting people down. But here's what I know now. See, most neurodivergent people are already trying harder than anyone around them can actually see. The problem isn't your effort, it's that the environment, the expectations, and the systems were never built for your brain in the first place. So, where does this just try harder mindset even come from? Well, it comes from a culture that ties effort to your worth as a person. You work more hours and you're dedicated. You push through the pain and you're suddenly strong. Struggle quietly? Well, that means that you've got character. But when that gets applied to neurodivergent folks, it can do some real damage because what it does is it mixes up your capacity, what your brain can actually handle, with your character as a person. So if you can't keep up with the pace or the noise or the constant switching between tasks or even all of the unspoken rules that no one ever actually explains, well, the story becomes that you don't care enough, that you're lazy, or that you're just not living up to your potential. And instead of anyone stopping to ask whether the setup is even workable for your brain, they start to question your motivation. And here's the thing, if you hear that long enough, it's only natural that you could start to believe it. And then every single time that you struggle with getting started, staying on task, or keeping track of steps, it just makes that idea of it being your fault stick. So here's the thing about effort when you're neurodivergent. It's not as simple as try or not trying. You see, a big part of this comes down to something called executive functioning. That's the part of your brain that helps you get started on things, switch from one task to another, and keep track of all the steps involved. And for a lot of neurodivergent brains, that part takes a lot more energy than it does for neurotypical people. And getting started on something, especially when it feels really vague or like too large of a task, can feel like your brain just won't move no matter how much you want it to. And switching from one thing to another, that costs real energy every single time. And then trying to hold multiple steps in your head while you're already doing something else can be close to impossible. And none of that gets better just because you care more about the outcome. Another big piece of it is the sensory and the social load. See, if you're trying to work in a loud, bright, unpredictable space, well, your nervous system is already working overtime before you even get to the actual task. Then add in things like fluorescent lights, background noise, people moving around you. All of that, it's using up your bandwidth. And if you also got to manage things like eye contact, monitoring your facial expression, and track the social rules in the room on top of all of that, by the time you sit down to do the thing, well, you might already be running close to empty. And then there's regulation, meaning how settled or overwhelmed your nervous system feels at any given moment. If it's already in fight, flight, or shutdown mode, your body's focusing on getting through right now, not on whatever is due later. Then burnout, chronic stress, not enough sleep, those all shrink what you've got available no matter how much you actually care. So when a system only looks at whether the task got finished and ignores everything that happened before that moment, it calls overwhelmed and overloaded the same thing as didn't try. And that's where the damage comes in. So what does try harder actually look like day to day? Well, in school, it might have sounded like you're capable of this, or you're just not applying yourself. That was said to a child who's staring at a blank page because their brain genuinely can't sequence the steps to even start. Or a child is told you're just disorganized, but they were never given a system that actually worked for their brain. For me, it showed up sitting in a classroom, heart already racing, staring at a worksheet that I actually wanted to finish, but my brain, it just wouldn't line the steps up. And I'd hear things like, you just need to focus. Well, I was already completely maxed out from all the noise and the lights and just trying to keep track of every unspoken rule in the room at the same time. At work, it can sound like you keep missing deadlines because you're not committed enough, when the real issue is time blindness, meaning your brain generally has a hard time sensing how much time has passed, or the expectations that were never made clear, or getting pulled out of focus so many times that you never actually got to finish. Or you might hear you need to speak up more during meetings, but those meetings are long and chaotic, and there's no space to actually process what's being said before someone moves on to the next topic. At home, it might look like you had all day, why is nothing done? When the unstructured time is actually harder for a lot of neurodivergent brains than having something like a clear external schedule to follow. You see, every single one of those times, the story is about who you are as a person, that you're careless, that you're not trying hard enough. But what's actually happening is so much simpler than that. Your brain was being asked to operate in conditions it wasn't built for, without the tools it actually needs to function. So what actually helps? Well, if trying harder was going to work, it would have worked by now. See, most neurodivergent people have been doing that for years. See, what actually helps isn't more effort. It's changing what's around the task so that the effort you're already putting in has somewhere real to go. Now, sometimes that means breaking the task down. Not, oh, go clean the kitchen, but just put the dishes in the sink. And that becomes the whole task right now, and you don't decide what comes next until after that one thing is finished. Sometimes it might mean adjusting the environment, doing the hard stuff when your energy's actually highest, not when someone else thinks you should be productive, using headphones or softer lighting, and stopping treating that like something you need to justify, and then protecting your focus instead of leaving yourself open to every interruption. And sometimes it means adjusting the expectations, asking for realistic timelines instead of pretending that you can operate the way that a neurotypical brain does. Saying something like, I need that in writing, instead of just hoping that you'll remember something said in passing, and also letting the non-urgent things be good enough so that you've still got something left for what actually matters. If you are raising a neurodivergent child or working with one, the most useful thing usually isn't a motivational conversation, but it's quietly building this kind of support into their day so that they're not spending all of their energy just trying to survive. And if you're a neurodivergent adult, it's giving yourself permission to build your life around how your brain actually works, not how you were told it's supposed to. So if you've spent years reaching for just try harder every time something goes wrong, I want you to try just a couple things this week. The first one is just to catch one moment where your brain goes straight to, I'm just being lazy, or I should be trying harder, and pause long enough to ask, what about this task, this environment, or these expectations is actually making it hard? Now, the second one is to change one thing about the setup instead of demanding more from yourself. So ask for clearer instructions. Set a timer for 5 minutes on just one step. Move somewhere quieter, or make the task smaller. The issue wasn't that you weren't trying hard enough. The issue is that you are a neurodivergent person being measured against conditions that were never designed for you. Now, if this helped you, please hit subscribe, because you shouldn't have to figure out autism and neurodivergent life alone.